Alright, we're going to use Desmos. We're going to create a graph and we're going to make sure it's got the correct scale and trend line. We're going to open up Desmos and then add some data to the graph using this plus symbol to make a data table. So let me show you how to do that. You might already know. You can download the Desmos app. It's probably the best way. It allows you to save graphs. But you can also just search Desmos in Google if you're in a time crunch, and you could use their web browser version, and then that's fine too. At the top left of the screen, you have the plus button, and hit table. So an X and a Y T-chart forms, and remember in physics, the X and the Y variables, they actually mean something. Right now, I'm just going to enter in some data, and let's just kind of make up an experiment here. Let's pretend that this data represents putting Mentos into a Coca-Cola liter bottle and watching a spout that shoots up. When you put in one Mentos, it shoots up at 86 centimeters, and you put in two Mentos and it shoots up at 142 centimeters. So that's the height of the Coca-Cola spout. If anyone's ever seen this experiment, we're just using it as an example so I can have some data that I can graph. And 675 centimeters, that looks good. Okay, so what's the deal? Where's my data? I gotta use a pinch and zoom feature, so I gotta zoom out because my highest number is 675 on the y-axis, and my scale right here only goes to 10, so I gotta zoom out. Boom, there we go. Now I can see my data, and that's a lot better. It's not great. We gotta figure this out. So properly size your graph and find all your plotted points or data points by pinching with two fingers anywhere not on the axis. Ooh, those words kind of got separated. That's okay. So if you pinch and zoom, like I'm going to put one finger there and another finger there, and I'm going to pinch and zoom out. Pinch and zoom out. You guys know how to do this, but it's just important that you're not on the axes in this case, because in the next thing you got to scale your graph by pinching or expanding with two fingers on the axes. So on the axes. So I'm gonna put my fingers here and here on the x-axis, and hopefully I'll scale my graph so that I don't have all of my data points all squished up over here. That's not what I want. I want them to take up the whole space of the graph. So I'm going to pinch with two fingers, and I'm going to zoom. I'm kind of sliding over as I go. Oh, I sort of lost. I'm going to zoom out again. And there we go. This is starting to look better. Cool. So I'm pretty much good on my x-axis. Let me fix my y-axis. There we go. Perfect. So I'm all in there. And I have my data. And the graph is scaled. I'm happy. Now we got to add a trend line. So create a trend line of best fit by adding an expression using the plus symbol. So we're going to use the y equals mx plus b expression. So it looks like that. This means function. You don't need to know this, but it's good to know it. Function, or f of x, is how they say it in math class. And you want to type in the following equation. Y equals mx plus b. You guys know this. This is your linear equation. You should have this thing memorized by now. Alright. Boom. So, using the plus button, hitting the expression, this stuff is going to pop up at the bottom. Y equals, and then I got to find m, so I'm going to ABC mx, and then plus b. Okay, cool. I got the expression, and then you're going to hit this add slider all feature. So let's see, do we have anything here? M is the symbol for slope, you guys know that piece. And B is the symbol for the y-intercept. Some of you guys call this the starting point, the growth in the starting point. I think y-intercept is a little bit more appropriate because in some cases your graph isn't growing, and in other cases, I don't know, maybe it's not starting at the y-intercept. Maybe there's negative numbers. Who knows? All right, click the add slider. So you want to click the add slider for both M and B. So I'm gonna hit all. First thing I'm gonna do is, if you can see, it's down at the very bottom with a really tiny slope. It's really hard to see if you see that like diagonal line. That's what it just added. Not very helpful at this point. First of all, this does not have a y-intercept of 1. It has a y-intercept of 0. So I'm just gonna type that in. Y-intercept 0. If you put in 0 Mentos, you're going to get a 0 height of spout. No reaction is going to happen, so make sure your y-intercept's right. And then the problem here is that your max, if I move this slider bar, you see that diagonal bar kind of wiggling, but the max is 10, so we got to change that. I'm just going to hit that 10, and I'm going to make my max, I don't know, 100, and see if that helps at all. Now, if you hit that play button, oh, there we go. You can start to move around. I'm going to stop it with my finger, and I'm going to go up and try to get my trend line right on track there. And there I have it. I got trying to have about as many points. Oop, sometimes it's hard to get it right as best as you possibly can. That's as good as we're going to get. I got 1 point above the line, 1 point below, and 2 sort of on. So I got my trend line, it's scaled, and note the slope. It says M equals 81. That means the slope equals 81. And you want to make sure that you write that down. So adjust the y-intercept to 0 if that's where you want your y-intercept. Remember to record the value of M. In other words, know your slope, and it was 81. 81. Of course, in physics, that 81 should have some units, and we'll talk about what that is later. Labels. Label your axes with the correct variables using the wrench symbol. Wrench. So there's like some sort of wrench symbol. It's gray. I think that's what it is. Let's go back and check. Using the wrench symbol. Okay. So it's over here on the top right. Bing. And this area is where you would scale your graph if you didn't have an iPad and you didn't have the pinch and zoom feature, where it says that checkbox where it says x-axis. That's showing my that's showing the scale, the lowest value and the highest value that's going to be displayed on my x-axis. So that's where I would change that. But what we want to do is we want to add a label. Let's add a label to our x-axis. And what did we say? This was the number of Mentos. Number of Mentos. And the y-axis was the height of the Coca-Cola spout. Alright, and oh yeah, don't forget your units in centimeters. Oh, okay, so you can see my axes are now labeled, and I'm going to get rid of that. I can see my graph, very nice. And so what I would do if I was inserting this graph into a lab write-up, I would take a screenshot and I would put it into a Notability slide or wherever I'm doing my lab write-up, or I would send it to the printer and cut that graph out. But you'll notice how it kind of takes up the whole page. That's the way Mr. Rip likes it. Perfect. So did we leave anything out? I think so. I think we got all our notes here. Perfect. Good job, team.